Welcome to Learning Unit 2, Verbal and Nonverbal Communication. We'll be beginning with Theme 1, which is our Chapter 5 coursework. The learning outcomes today is firstly to describe the components of language and discuss the relationship between language and perception. Let's get started. Please turn to page 89 in your textbook. For our introduction, they go into that language is affected in our cultural communication, how we communicate with others. Therefore, there is a possibility to have a misunderstanding because we tend to change the meaning of how we speak. So remember from your Communication Science 1A, people do not necessarily always understand what we're trying to say because they have a different frame of reference. If you look through your textbook examples, you'll see that there's a lot of language spoken out there. There's apparently 6,000 languages in the entire world, which is quite a bit. And then we have our table 5.1 that shows all the South African languages, which we have 11 official languages in our constitution. So there we should see here is the population of South Africa by first language spoken at home is from 2001, the census, to 2011. So mostly Afrikaans, then English second. So in this part of our work, we firstly discuss how can we begin to understand the important role of language in our intercultural communication. Why is language so important when it comes to our content? We go into multilingualism, which means the use of more than one language in the day-to-day lives of groups, institutions, and individuals, and includes the regional languages, dialects, and even sign language. So this just makes use of more than one language. And then, of course, we do have when there's two languages that someone can speak, meaning that they are bilingual. Multilingualism is directly related to multiculturalism. And this is also takes into effect the rainbow reality in South Africa, the rainbow nation that it is, that we have so many languages in our culture that becomes part of our culture. And this is important for our culture of consultation and participation as well. And it enhances our human rights to have sort of acknowledgement that we have all these languages. It's important in South Africa especially to recognize that there is cultural diversity of different languages. And it would be amazing, I think I do point this out further along the slides, that we could learn other languages besides the one that we do speak at home. Of course, most of us do speak English and Afrikaans, but it'd be amazing to speak more than that because there are 11 languages in South Africa. Okay. They go into talking more about why it is particularly important that there is the four particularly reasons for the use of different languages on our page 89 here. The first one is to prevent the tragic consequences of the Soweto uprising in 1976 and the effects of the Bantu education, where Afrikaans in schools were compulsory for all. Multilingualism gives the opportunity to speak in their mother tongue, at least at school. It's also important for the realization of post-apartheid. So especially in South Africa, it's very important to recognize that we have all these languages that does make part of our culture and how we communicate with others. Okay, let's turn to the next page, and page 90. So many countries, even though they have a lot of language, especially us, we have 11 official languages. Most countries are going to go towards monolingualism, which is that they'll speak one language. And if you look on the page 90, we have the top 10 languages, which is Chinese Mandarin, English, Spanish, Hindi, Urdu, Russian, Arabic, Portuguese, Bengali, French, and Malay Indonesian. And then on the next page, on page 91, we have in table 5.2, the top most influential languages in the world, which is English, French, Spanish, Arabic, Mandarin, Russian, Portuguese, German, Japanese, and Hindi. So how can people communicate given all the different languages that's out there? And in this particular part of our work, we look at what are the difficulties in trying to understand each other. And something that we never really consider as well is that there is so much language out there. How does it affect our culture? How does it affect how we communicate with each other? And is there any way that we can be better when it comes to intercultural communicators? Okay. Is it possible for two people to communicate effectively that don't speak the same language? If you meet someone, how can you kind of, bridge that gap of like, I'm trying to say something, I'm trying to communicate with you, and so on. Okay. Also, if you look into your lesson plan, I've designed some activities around this, which is what languages are you interested in learning? Are there any particular languages that have interested you before that you would want to learn? Is it French? Is it Latin? Is it Korean, Japanese? What languages interest you in terms of what you'd want to learn one day, to be bilingual or multilingual in that sense? Let's go into the next section and go into the section of the study of languages and the components of language makes up our first learning outcome.